to sit down and meditate, and my body just started to go invisible, and I started to feel an enormous pressure build up, an enormous energy surge build up. And I had my hands in a particular mudra at the time, and my hands started to twitch and shake, and then my eyelids started to twitch and shake, and it was almost like, it felt like a blockage just suddenly went poof. And then it was like a lightning bolt that had gone through me, and an energy that was pouring through a pipeline about this big through my entire body, with electricity and energy. And at the same time, my body, as this unfolded and as the energy burst and just expanded into me, my consciousness just suddenly expanded as well, and my body went completely invisible. And I was then basically out of body, traveling through these different planes.
Welcome to the Endless Possibilities Podcast, where the journey of spiritual awakening and energy healing unfolds.
Hello and welcome to the Endless Possibilities Podcast. My name is Gareth and I am your host today for another amazing episode. Today on the show I have Ben Smith. I am going to give Ben a quick introduction. Ben was born in Leicester, England in February 1993. His dad was in the midst of a profound spiritual expansion after discovering a local spiritual master who chose to remain anonymous. He later became a meditation teacher himself. At the age of 6, Ben was introduced to meditation, and throughout his childhood, spiritual matters were always a hot topic of conversation. In his early 20s, he wanted to test himself physically and mentally, so he entered a triathlon and quickly became hooked. After several years of training, he eventually raced for Great Britain's age group team in both triathlon and judo at the European level. He won both the Lanbury's and the Isle of Anglesey swim run races and found himself on the podium of many triathlon races across all distances. He raced 50-mile ultra mountain marathons and completed marathon swims. In 2017, he finished his first Ironman at the age of 24, placing third in his category. The following year, he finished top 10 in the National Triathlon Championships. In 2019, a foot injury put an immediate end to his flourishing triathlon journey. Alongside this, several people close to him had discovered their struggle with mental health. This was the catalyst which inspired Ben to begin teaching meditation, a practice that had been an integral part of his life. In 2020, Ben moved from Leicester to Bournemouth on his own and started a new life on the south coast of England. Throughout 2020 to 2023, Ben had been teaching meditation and mentoring people across all corners of the world. His own practice had also leveled up and he was rapidly growing. In 2023, he had various profound out-of-body experiences during a rigorous period of personal meditation training. These gave him certainties of many truths he had previously only understood on a theoretical level. In 2023, Ben started his YouTube channel. In February 2024, Ben created Inner Journey School. His aim was to create a hub for spiritual seekers across the world to learn real, genuine meditation techniques and get direct support and guidance with their spiritual paths. Ben, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Good to
Thanks
see
so
you
much for
today.
having me. Yeah, great to be on.
Yeah, very, very happy to have you on. I have a good friend who told me about you. He's mentioned you a few times. I think you've both met at Mother Mira.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he just suggested that you would be a great person to have on and have a chat with. So, Ben, we'll get straight into it. Do you want to give those for those who don't know you, maybe we'll just bring it back before spirituality sort of emerged. What was your life like? What kind
Hmm.
of
Yeah, it was. I suppose I had a unique upbringing in as much as my dad was going through his own spiritual awakening when he was about 28, 29. So when I was sort of 5, 6, 7, probably a bit before that, there were pictures of Mother Mira in the house. There were all types of different books of different teachers. My dad had just met his spiritual teacher, who is also now my spiritual teacher. And so he was getting into all of this. And so it was kind of a topic of conversation that I was just not necessarily always involved in, but I was always aware of. So it was always something that I think was very normalized. I suppose it's probably similar to a lot of people who grow up in sort of Hindu faiths. You know, they become normalized to seeing pictures of deities or conversations about the divine and this type of thing. So it was unique in as much as for a Western family to have conversations like that is probably not too common. And my dad was getting into meditation a lot, so he was meditating a lot. Eventually, he had like a shrine room in the house, and I was a very normal kid, I would say, other than the fact I was super hyper, super energetic. And when I was 6 years old, I got introduced to my dad's teacher, and he, as I say, became my teacher. And the only way I can describe that interaction, it was as if I looked through a piece of glass. I remember just I've got this distinct screenshot in my mind of the first time we met, and he had a big smile on his face. He held his hand out to shake my hand. I was 6 years old, and yeah, I couldn't put it into words at the time. I didn't have the words or the understanding to describe it, but it was like I looked through something that was completely pure and had no defects whatsoever. That's probably as much as I could say about it. And it was a nice interaction and all of that. But then, sort of as I got older, I used to tell people that I knew, I knew the divine, as ridiculous as it sounds. And I didn't even, no one said that to me at the time, or, said who he was until I was a bit older. He sort of announced who he was when I was about 13. And yeah, we used to go around to his house. He had a normal family, and every sort of weekend when we'd go around there, my dad was quite pally with him. It was just spiritual conversations. Just he would just talk to me as if he was talking to my dad, and it felt totally comfortable and natural to me. It just didn't feel like something that was strange or unusual. So we'd have conversations about all kinds of different topics, and he would teach us and give me direction on things to think about and things to practice and try this and do that. But it was all in a very if you want to kind of way. It was never you should do this or you should do that. It was always very smiley, very friendly. You might want to try this. This might help you. And because I showed interest, he then encouraged it more. And then obviously I had my dad to bounce these kind of conversations off and talk back and forth with. So it sort of began there. And people probably think, wow, what a perfect upbringing. But naturally, I'm a human being with an ego. And as I got to 16, 17, it all sort of tailed off, and I got into all the normal things that many people do, which is drinking, smoking, going out, doing all of that. And it probably wasn't until I was about 21 again where I started picking it back up and really diving into that interest again. But yeah, it started off very early. Started off when I was very, very young, and meditation was a big thing, and just and I suppose just developing more knowledge on spirituality was something that I started quite early. And from
mm.
there, it just built up to eventually where it is now, which is, putting videos out on YouTube and teaching and all of that.
Yeah, and also I read about you getting involved with running and swimming. Do you want to just
Hmm.
quickly go over that? Because I think that's a very big part of
Yeah.
what actually happened for you. The way it was, you got really, really engaged in athletics, and then it was taken away. So do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, it sort of, so that age between 16 and 20 was the sort of going out, drinking, living a normal life type of phase. And at about 20-ish, I decided one day I need to sort this out. And around that time, I saw a post on Facebook for a triathlon. And I thought, I think I just booked it at that time and said, right, that's it. I'm going to just do that. And the seed had been planted when I was really, really young because I remember a friend of my dad's coming round and him and my dad talking about someone that they knew who was doing an Ironman. And I remember them talking about this person like he was a superhero and being at the dinner table and being like, what's this Ironman thing? And them talking about the distances. Oh, 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, 12-mile bike ride, and then a full marathon. And me just thinking at 12 years old, that doesn't sound humanly possible.
Mm. Hello, guys. I hope you are enjoying the interview. This is just a little request for help to support this channel. If you could follow us by hitting subscribe, this goes towards showing YouTube that this is a worthwhile channel and they push us out to new audiences through the algorithm. So if you want to do something that doesn't cost you any money, it's free, just hit subscribe, even drop a comment down below or hit the like button. Thank you very much. Now back to the interview with Ben.
But someone's doing it, so it is possible. And I remember thinking at that time, somewhere deep inside, probably not consciously, I'm going to do that one day. And when I got to when this sort of point in my life came about when I was about 20 and I started getting into triathlon, that memory resurfaced. And eventually over the course of about 4 or 5 years, probably about 4 years, built my endurance engine up, I suppose, and got quite decent at triathlon and ended up racing at like an age group level. So it's for Great Britain, but not as a professional, but as like an elite amateur. And was racing all around the world. And I did do an Ironman eventually and just basically threw myself in really heavily into endurance racing. I think it was the thing that pulled me out of the vices that had gripped me.
Yeah.
And so I was channeling then myself into what I felt like was a really positive avenue, which was, because everyone's patting you on the back saying, oh, great, well done. You're so impressive. You did this big race or you did this big adventure or whatever it was. And I did loads throughout that time. I climbed mountains all over the world, some solo, some with friends, did ultra marathons, mountain marathons, swim marathons, everything you could think of pretty much I was doing throughout that period. And then I got to a point where I just picked up an injury out of nowhere, and I worked out that it was a stress fracture basically in my foot. I got a stress fracture, and it just stopped me from running. So it pretty much stopped me being able to do triathlons. And around that time, I also met a girl that I started to take to, and I think the combination of those two things, meeting someone that redirected my interest and having this injury that meant I was happy to redirect my interest, took me away from triathlon. And that relationship didn't end up working out. But by that point, I was already away from the triathlon phase and had sort of been taken away from it.
And it wasn't a painful experience?
It was painful. Yeah, because it was like I was shedding a part of me. I
Yeah.
was letting go that part of me.
Yeah.
The Ben that had been built up through triathlon had to go.
Mm.
And yeah, there's always pain in that letting go.
Yeah. I mean, the similarities between my story, very similar. Late teens, early 20s, running wild, then got involved in sports, nutrition,
Hmm.
totally changed, like literally flipped a switch from going to all the partying to like the cleanest diet, training every day, just completely fanatical for a number of years. And I guess there's something happening there. It's like it's giving you structure. It's almost like it's a preparation. I felt for what
Definitely.
was coming further down the line.
I think you're right. It sounds really, really similar. Yeah, our stories.
Adi Ashanti was the same as well. He was a competitive cyclist, and then a mysterious illness came along, and just kind of like the egoic part of wanting to compete seemed to
Yeah.
be taken away.
I think you're right though. I do think it's like in many ways I do think it's a beneficial phase. I think in terms of like the journey of our soul going through that phase, at least for me, it doesn't need to look like that for everyone. It might be a different avenue, but I felt like I gained a lot from that I was then able to direct towards this type of work.
Structure, and
Structure,
yeah,
discipline,
yeah.
the work ethic, the belief, so many aspects I think that you develop. It's just a shame that they're quite ego led. That's the part that you have to sort of let go of.
Yeah. So for you, it was a stress fracture, and for me, I got a mysterious illness that just kind of put me in bed for, I don't know, it was going on for a long time, but I at the peak of it, it was like a year where I was like
Mm.
really struggling to get out of bed. And I felt that it was all necessary. It was all like just a plan to build up the ego in a certain way, and then like, you know, come in and just strip it away. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's needed.
yeah. So fast forward, then the spirituality came back. How did that start to unfold then?
I was always meditating through that period, but for more of a mental mental health from a mental health kind of perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
But through the phase where things started to become more painful, but sort of emotionally painful when I couldn't race, and then this relationship with this girl was sort of not really working out. I was leaning then heavily on the meditation. So I was meditating a lot, and this was probably when I was 24 or something like that.
Mm.
So I was meditating quite a lot. And I think around that time, I just started to naturally, because anytime you feel pain or you're going through some kind of hardship, not naturally, but quite often, it then redirects you inward. It's the thing that directs you to something that's going to help you, because you start realizing that these vices aren't really helping you, not positively. They might feel like they are, but they don't positively impact you. And I think it became then a crutch to go inward and seek some help, seek some advice, and tap into the knowledge bank that was still there from when I was young. And, you know, the connection that I still had with my teacher, because all through this time I was still connected. We still would meet up and things, but I wasn't necessarily practicing and living the life. I was just talking about the life. So I think from there it started to pick up, and spent a few years then developing my own practice again and meditating more consistently and feeling that connection more. And it just sort of from then up until where I am now, I'm 32 now, I would just say it's just been an upward curve of building on that connection with the divine more, understanding myself on a deeper and deeper level, throwing myself massively into meditation. And the last 5 years, I've been teaching people all around the world. So it's been, I had to get myself back and myself straight and that connection back again. And before I could then start the teaching, but it just felt right. It felt like it was my dharma to be doing what I'm doing now. But also, I feel like it was a beneficial thing to have gone through the difficult process, because then I can relate to other people who are going through that and, you know, starting to come to spirituality that way.
Okay, okay. We'll get into that, but I think maybe we'll come back a little bit and start to talk about your process, your unfoldment of consciousness and what that
Mhm.
maybe looked like. You said that you connected with Mother Mira a couple of times. So like
Mhm.
what describe your journey, right? Just like the changes that were going on internally with
Yeah.
you as you were.
There's been, I would say, over the years, there's been a lot of expansions, a lot of changes, a lot of the old self that's had to go. And I think the first big expansion was when I was about 12, and I went on holiday with me, my dad, and my teacher, and it was like a spiritual boot camp. It ended up being like that, not in the sense that we were doing, you know, spiritual work really aggressively or anything. It was just that we went there as friends. Ultimately, my dad and my teacher are very good friends, and we went abroad and we were in this apartment. And every day, because it was so hot, we would come inside at about midday, and we'd probably spend 2 or 3 hours just sat on the sofa or sat on the chairs, just talking. And it would be all spiritual conversations, and he would do a lot of teaching and talking through deeper concepts, explaining to me all the intricacies of karma, all the intricacies of what happens when you die, all the intricacies of different aspects of spirituality that I perhaps had a peripheral understanding of or a basic understanding of, and he just went deeper and deeper. I didn't, he hadn't told me who he was at this point. I knew intuitively who he was, but he hadn't told me, but he did on this trip. He actually told me who he was, which was the first time he had actually said that to me. But over the course of that week, I changed massively. I'd really grown inwardly, and it was almost like the light within me had been, expanded a bit more. Bit of fuel had been chucked on that light, and I suppose I was in and out of it then throughout that period until probably the early 20s. And I had seen Mother Mira in those periods between, I think perhaps when I was about 18 I might have seen Mother Mira. And every time I went to see Mother Mira, it was a big shift that happened internally. And anyone that has been to see her will probably know that it's quite hard to put your finger on it. Some people will have really flashy types of experiences where they'll see lots of things and it's quite obvious and you can talk about it. Mine are very deep, and I can perceive them and I notice them, but they're hard to articulate. The changes that I can just, it's all happening within me. I like to talk about it as if it's like tectonic plates that are moving under the earth. There's lots of those moving and lots of changes happening. What happens on the surface isn't always necessarily easy to explain or talk about. But I went to see her probably maybe 5 or 6 times between the age of 17, 18 and now. And yeah, then after this sort of triathlon phase and I started to pick things up again, I'd picked up some bad vices before that, before I started to actually throw myself into meditating properly and doing all of that. So I had to let those go. I picked up smoking and doing things like that a bit and really had to let that go. But every time I picked up a book about Mother Mira, I'd feel the energy. I could look into her eyes and I could feel just this wave of energy coming through me.
And Ben, did you understand what Mother Mira was, or did you have like a concept for an avatar?
Yeah, because my teacher had told me who he was and explained it. He'd explained what an avatar was and what they're here for. He made it very clear avatars are direct incarnations of the divine that have come for specific jobs. So they're here for a specific purpose. And some of them are more known, like Mother Mira, and a few of them are just for whatever reason remain unknown. And they do it on purpose. They never kind of, it's hard to understand every aspect of an avatar because ultimately they're the divine, so you can't ever understand completely why they do certain things. But I think a big part of why some of them sort of stay under the surface is because they want us to make the changes. So they perhaps may teach a couple of people who can influence other people to make the changes, and ultimately they give us the tools to help us change ourselves rather than coming in and just fixing everything. I think that's one of the reasons why they're quite, they don't make themselves known necessarily.
And maybe they transmute just by being there, right? They just by their presence in local areas, they're
Yeah,
having a ripple effect out on society
yeah,
without anyone even knowing.
hmm definitely, 100%. I mean, that was another reason why I knew who my teacher was, because I'd go to his house to talk to him, and I'd just be getting absolutely filled with light. And I could feel it everywhere. The power that I could feel all over me was just immense.
So your teacher was an avatar or is an avatar
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and wants to remain under the radar. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's happy with me teaching the sort of things that he passed on to me. And a friend of mine's written a book of his journey, which involves a lot of their conversations and their teachings and things like that. So he wants the teachings out there.
Okay.
He doesn't want to be known for the teachings.
Okay.
He's well, he had a wife and kids and that type of thing. He's older now. He's like 85, so
Oh wow. Yeah.
he's getting on now.
And the teachings, do you want to get into a little bit about the teachings?
Yeah, they're very. I suppose they're very simplistic, and it at the core of the teachings, everything is about trying to get to the bottom of who we really are.
Mm.
Actually, who are we beyond the mind, beyond the body? What is it that is present right at the very, very core? Not just the awareness, but right the way down. And he, described that as being God or the divine. And his all of his teachings were about remembering the divine again, about re-establishing that connection with the divine and working towards the realization of the fact that we're always one with the divine. We always have been, we always will be, and in eternity we are one with the divine, but we've forgotten. And over many, many incarnations, we've become entangled in life and in the identity of the body and the mind and everything that's going on around us. And we've forgotten the fact that at the core of it, we're actually one with the divine. At some point, we have to make that journey back to realizing that. So it's all centered around that premise. And he gave us different tools by which to reconnect, which aren't anything new, but they're just, I suppose, been given in a simplified way, which is meditation, prayer, mantra, these simple tools and techniques to reconnect.
And I guess, Ben, like you're unique in the way you're delivering them, right? You're young, you have a grasp on social media, YouTube, broadcasting yourself out there. Times are changing, and this is how people are connecting now, right? Through
Mm.
these different avenues, right? It's not
Yeah.
like we travel to India and we sit in a temple somewhere with a teacher, or yeah, it's changing. It's totally changing, and we need more people who have these skills, right? Who are useful in today's society to be able to
Definitely.
teach people, to be able to connect with people.
Mm, definitely. Yeah. And just I think in a relatable way as well,
Yeah,
just in a simple way. Doesn't need to be this, it doesn't need to be complicated. It just in a simple way with someone that you feel you relate with, you relate to. I think that's huge. And just that
yeah,
he was very, on the surface, what we'd consider normal. He was very just, would have a laugh, would have a joke. Everything was very normal. It wasn't this kind of guru relationship in the way that you might consider a guru relationship to be. Not that
yeah,
there's anything wrong with them, but
yeah.
I think people just want this relatable connection.
Yeah. So let's just quickly talk about the difference between a guru and an avatar, right?
Yeah,
So a guru seems to be someone who's gone through lifetime after lifetime and probably have awakened in previous lives and, come back to help. Whereas an avatar is like the divine descending in fast. Like it doesn't have to go through multiple lifetimes to reach that level. Is
that's
that
exactly.
your okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly as it was explained to me, at least. Is yeah, the avatar. It Although there may not be a descending and ascending, but for simplicity, descends into human form, comes
Mm,
down from divine consciousness, but with that divine consciousness embodied in a human form,
yeah.
as we have as well. But they're aware at all times of who they really are. There's no ego there. There's always that understanding and that connection.
And have they had previous lives? Not necessarily on this planet, but anywhere else, or are they just uniquely formed for this purpose?
Yeah, uniquely formed for the purpose. Yeah. They may have had other lives as an avatar, but they've not, as you mentioned at the start, not had human births and worked their way
Okay.
back to source to eventually come back again. Yeah. They've
Yeah.
always just been one with the divine, come back or come into a human body to enable that interaction to happen in a more relatable, easy manner, basically. They can actually communicate directly with a human being. Like many people will relate with Mother Mira because because she's in a human body, they can
She's in
relate
a
to it
human body.
and they can think about Mother Mira. They can picture Mother Mira in their mind when they're praying and that type of thing. So it gives the mind a tangible representation of the divine that you can communicate with.
It's an interface, right?
Exactly, yeah. I think so. Gives us that bridge.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a picture or a video. And one of the things I noticed was like there's an energy around beings. There's a transmission, and that is quite a big thing around the avatars. It's like it's the transmission more
Mhm.
so than the teaching, I think.
Yeah, yeah. You feel it, don't you?
Oh, totally, totally. If I don't know if anyone's ever been to Mother Mira, there's a deep silence that you come. It's almost like you can't even find your own thoughts after
Yeah,
sitting with Mother Mira for a while.
it's pretty special. Yeah. But
Yeah,
then it's at the same time, there's many people that go to see Mother Mira, and they, understandably as well, don't quite understand it because they think, well, I've gone to see this teacher. Why is she not talking? Why is she just come all the way to Germany and she's just sitting there? What's this all about? And I think without the explanation, it's hard to understand. It can be
yes.
difficult
Yeah, and
to see where you
she
go.
really doesn't give the mind or the ego anything to grasp on.
No,
Just gives the bare minimum. Hi, if she does talk, it's very, yeah, very small. So do these avatar, are they aware of one another, do you think, Ben?
they are. Yeah, I mean, my teacher put us on to Mother Mira, and some people
Okay.
actually have said, "Why do you go to see Mother Mira when you've already got a teacher?" Um, for one, I don't actually live close to him anymore, and he's a family man, so it's not really feasible and suitable to just be going around and getting darshan all the time. um, but also, they're all that I see them all as being the same, and for me, it's just another experience of the divine. It's another way to experience the divine by going to see
So
another avatar.
yeah, so you think they carry different flavors?
Yeah, they definitely, although the sort of teachings at the top are exactly the same, what they're directing you towards is the same. There are little differences in them, in their teachings and the way they deliver the teachings, and subtle aspects to the teachings will be unique to them. But overall, the direction is similar. Well, it's the
Hmm.
same. The direction is the same.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there
So
are differences.
I mean, I've been around Mother Mira and Amma and completely different frequency. One feels like love, the other feels like stillness,
Mhm.
quietness. Um, your teacher, what did you kind of have a sense of what he was embodying? Because that was my
I'm totally
feeling.
with you with Mother Mira. The
Yeah.
silence and the stillness of Mother Mira is an experience that that's how I would probably
Mm,
describe her. I would say powerful with
yeah.
my teacher. It's this pressure. This is almost like the energy coming off him is divine pressure. You feel that light as pressure in a positive sense. It's
Yeah.
probably the best I could do. It's quite difficult to word it. Similar to how it is with Mother Mira, it's hard to articulate sometimes.
Yeah.
Experiences
Yeah.
like.
And Ben, did you find yourself going through a spiritual awakening? Like, was there shift, like like what they would call like self-realization, and was there an experience of Kundalini, all this kind of the energetic rewiring of your nervous
Mm.
system?
Yeah, there's been different expansions over time, some smaller than others, some just simple, small ones where I've been reading a book and just been ended up in tears because I've just felt like I've been filled to the brim with love and divine light. There've been expansions that have then changed the direction of where I was going at the time. The one primary big experience that I had was I went on a Vipassana retreat, and I didn't go on there to particularly practice Vipassana because I basically went on there and I was like, I want 10 days to myself to go deep into myself. And I used the tools that my teacher had been teaching me over the years, and just felt like for the whole 10 days I was basically holding in hands with the divine the whole time. It just felt like not an aspect of my mind was ever not there, with source. I was just so connected, meditating 10 hours a day. And on day 7 I went to sit down and meditate, and my body just started to go invisible, and I started to feel an enormous pressure build up, an enormous energy surge build up. And I had my hands in a particular mudra at the time, and my hands started to twitch and shake, and then my eyelids started to twitch and shake, and it was almost like, it felt like a blockage just suddenly went pop. And then it was like a lightning bolt that had gone through me, and an energy that was pouring through a pipeline about this big through my entire body, with electricity and energy. And at the same time, my body, as this unfolded and as the energy burst and just expanded into me, my consciousness just suddenly expanded as well, and my body went completely invisible. And I was then basically out of body traveling through these different planes, and I was going through one plane, and then I'd feel what felt like a, almost like taking a rucksack off, almost taking a layer of clothing off. It just went, I went more refined, more refined, more refined. And as I was doing that, at any time I could come back into my body. As soon as I thought about the body, poof, I was in the body. And as soon as I was in the body, I would jolt forward. So I had to practice coming back in and out of the body, because I was in a room with 100 people with this crazy experience going on in complete silence. So I had to practice coming back in and out the body in a smooth way. And once I got that, I was then able to tune in and just leave the body again instantly and travel through these different planes. And I was just in a place where my body had turned to just nothing. I remember looking down to see if I had a form, and I didn't have a form. But where I was more real than anything I'd ever experienced in my life. What we feel here, the dense experience that we feel here, the taste and the touch and smell and everything, it felt like I'd downgraded. It's like going from a game, playing a game in 2025 and going back to a game in, the 1990s, and being like, God, this is clunky. This is this is bad. It's a bit like that. And
Yeah.
it just carried on. It just carried on for days and days. And just every time I'd meditate, I'd come out of my body, back in.
And did you know what was going on, Ben? Did you have and were you able to communicate with your teacher and relay back some of these shifts and get confirmation what was happening?
Yeah, this is quite a funny story, actually. So 2 weeks before I went on this retreat, I called my teacher and I said, I'm going on this passing the course. I said, I really want to go within myself and experience more. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm looking for that next. Oh, I'm looking for the knowing. I'm after the knowing now, which isn't normally what I'd recommend to people to chase the experience, but I just felt ready. I felt like it was the right time. And I said this to him on the phone, and at the end of the phone call, he said, well, I thought jokingly, he said, I'll see you on the higher planes. And I started laughing and said, oh yeah, I'll see you there, and put the phone down. Didn't think anything more of it. And then when I was in this meditation experience, there was just this, I reached a certain threshold where I felt like I'd gone through many layers. And there was just this, it was almost like I was in space, but there was just this huge energy above me, just an immense energy that I didn't have a form at that, in that particular plane, wherever it was, but I felt like I had to bend down and almost bow down to it in a really positive way, not in a fearful way, just
Like
in
a
a
reverence or
just absolute awe. Just, I can't believe the magnitude of this, just that kind of thing. It was unbelievable. The energy of it, the size of it, couldn't comprehend. I couldn't even explain how big it was. Our eyes can't see that level of
yeah.
size, the human eyes. So I felt like I had to bow down to it. And anyway, long story short, came out of the actual retreat, and I hadn't spoke to anyone, hadn't messaged anyone, hadn't done anything. But the first person that I was like, I need to speak to this person, was my teacher.
Mhm.
So once we got our phones back, I called him, and he answered the phone, and I said, what the hell happened? I didn't say hello or anything. I just said, what the hell happened? And he said, we had a great time up there, didn't we? And was laughing on the phone as I was doing it. And I started to put the connections together, that he was with me, and the energy that I was perceiving was perhaps him. And it just, yeah, he then helped me to understand what was going on and the energy I was feeling. And he said it was all me. Everything was me. There's nothing that you experienced that wasn't me. And it was just, it was the understanding that I needed, because I know that you've had similar things probably. I think from reading bits about you, you've had similar
Yeah.
experiences, and it's easy for a lot of a fear to accompany them things. It was, and I could feel that developing more, thinking, what's going on? Have I done something wrong? Is this, have I unlocked something that I wasn't ready for? Or, and
Mm.
he squished all of that by just through that conversation of, no, it was okay. I was with you the whole time. Everything was me. Everything was unfolding as it should. You did the right thing, blah, blah, blah. So that really put my mind at ease, and also was like confirmation from that, not confirmation, but it just made me smile from that first conversation we had about seeing you on the higher planes.
Yeah, and did you have a reference then for like what had happened within you, within your system, like what was like how consciousness was flowering maybe?
Yeah, I mean, like you've probably noticed with Mother Mira, they have a limit on how much detail they go into, because
Yeah,
I presume they feel that there's only, once you get to a certain understanding, anything after that is kind of perhaps not necessary, and gives you just something to give your mind to sort of focus on, and it's not necessarily developing you any much. So
yeah,
he was very slim in the answers that he gave me about what had actually happened. He's just sort of said that, it all unfolded as it should have.
yeah,
We were on a very high plane. He didn't tell me what plane. He just said we were on a very high plane. And I understood through my own study that it was obviously Kundalini that had been released, or awakened, as many people will put it. But he didn't go into detail about other, you know, I suppose physical aspects of the experience more, or anything like that.
And I guess Ben, that's like in a way very useful, right? Because your mind doesn't start running off with a story. One of the things that I notice, especially with men who start going through a Kundalini awakening, is it's almost like if the ego hasn't been tamed, it has the ability to start running away with itself, like,
Yeah.
thinking that it's become special or it has superpowers. And that can take decades to sort of like really come to terms with like that. You,
Mm-hmm.
you have to bring yourself back and be small and, you know, the,
Mm-hmm.
like I guess what I'm saying is at the end all of the stages and all of the descriptions about these stages, they all just fall away and life becomes
Yeah.
very normal and,
Yeah, I think so. And a lot of it, I think he always brought things back to virtues, and he would talk about, the foundation of all spiritual development has to rest on these virtues, and humility was a big virtue that he
yeah,
promoted. And I talk about these experiences because I think it hopefully inspires people, and it shows people who have had them that it's okay and it's normal and it does happen, and people who
yeah,
maybe are, still getting into meditation and things, that these types of things may happen. So I do talk about it, but I think the humility aspect is so important to, as you said then, like, consider yourself small still. And, I still like to consider myself very much a student, and that I'm always learning, even though I teach a lot of people. I learn more from them half the time, through the questions they ask and things like that. I think he put a big emphasis on being small. And he actually said one time, I'll probably get the phrase wrong now, but I've mentioned it before. He said something along the lines of, greatness is achieved not by appearing or striving to appear great.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and that says it all. It's appearing like you're one of everyone else, and
yeah.
being like you're one of everyone else, because you are. And as you said, if you start thinking you're special or beyond other people or above anyone, that's very, very dangerous for the ego then at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the ego just like, it's, and I mean, maybe it's just part of it as well, right? Maybe that's just part of an awakening is where the ego grabs hold of the spiritual awakening and starts to run with it. And then it's just another illusion that's seen through. But I've heard people refer to themselves as like the penthouse of what a teacher, and all the other teachers are down on the second floor, and I'm like, whereas I kind of see myself as being the basement, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
where can you go if you're on the penthouse? Where can you go? You've sealed yourself
Mm,
up there, on a pedestal. Whereas if you're staying in beginner mind on the bottom, you've always got somewhere to go. There's always
yeah.
something new that can come in. Like one of the beautiful things I find myself very lucky is having amazing conversations with so many great people, right? And listening to the humility in them and just I don't know, I feel very blessed really to have these conversations. Yeah.
It's nice, isn't it? It is nice to, yeah, chat with other people and hear how they've gone through their process or how it unfolded for them. It makes it helps you to feel like what you're going through isn't a totally unique, strange thing. I think for so much of my upbringing, I felt like I had this really weird aspect to myself, which I didn't want anyone to know about. You know, the teacher, the meditation, all of these different things, which none of my friends from school would have had any understanding of or been able
I
to
get I get
comprehend.
that. I get that for a young person, teenager. Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's
Now
totally
you're
different.
the envy of everybody, Ben.
Now I've got hundreds of people I can talk to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let me come back. I had something I was going to ask you. So okay, so you then turning the corner and coming into like the role of a teacher somehow. Do you want to talk about that? How did that start to unfold?
Mm. I, yeah, I think it always, I had a deep inner sense that I needed to teach. I think it was just something within me that I felt I needed to do, and because I'd built up a decent amount of knowledge through listening to all these conversations, having all these conversations, and spending many years practicing myself, I felt like I'd gone through my apprenticeship in
Mm.
meditation and these types of things. And then I think that awakening that I had was the switch that changed me to being a teacher. I
Mm.
felt something big happened in that experience beyond just the energy that I felt. And I was a different person after that. And I felt like I had stepped into my true role. The role that I'm truly here to actually do. I felt like I'd stepped into that more after that experience. I was already a qualified meditation teacher when I went on that retreat, but I felt like I'd really embodied that more after that.
And Ben, just really quickly, in terms of a career going, parallel to all of this, what did you do something as work or?
Yeah, I was so when I was about seems like a lot of things happened when I was 12, but in my memory of it, I was about 12. My teacher said to me, he said, "Oh, you'll be a specialist in boilers when you're older." Oh, I didn't know what a boiler was, so I knew nothing about it. But bit by bit, I got into plumbing, got into heating, and
I was a plumber.
no way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Amazing. There you go.
Yeah.
Obviously, the route for spiritual growth, is it?
And it's funny because when I was going through my spiritual awakening, I would have I was very lucky, right? Because I had an ability, I had a lot of psychic abilities from early on. And when I would meditate, when I would have questions or I'd query certain shift, everything was displayed to me in terms of plumbing, valves, pipe work,
Okay.
shower heads. That's how it would be, yeah, described, yeah, or shown. The metaphors were all plumbing systems. Yeah.
That's funny, actually. Yeah, well, you saw me say the pipeline and the valve opening. I do a similar thing actually. I see it in quite a similar way. But yeah, he prompted me down that route. He planted the seed for me to go down that route, and I did end up going down that route, becoming gas safe, specializing in boiler repairs, and I did that for 10 or 15 years really until about I actually only stopped it about 6 months ago. But even a few years before that, I was down to part time, and so I was teaching half the time, and then going out and doing boiler work the other half of the week. But yeah, as I started about a year after I think it was that I had that big expansion, I started then posting a bit on YouTube, and bit by bit, people started watching the videos and asking if I could teach them. And
Okay, we'll get into that. It's funny, I've never asked anybody on this podcast what their career was, or never. I don't know why. I was probably supposed to ask you that. Okay, but one of the things that I notice is, right, that the divine or the universe or whatever you want to call it, God, it seems to handpick people that it sees useful, right? That have a skill set. Like listening to you, you seem like you're definitely articulate in how you speak about this, the metaphors you use, the fact that you can use modern technology, right? Right, you can get the message out there. And we covered a little bit about that earlier. So YouTube and the platforms and how you started to get out there, did that come easy to you? Was there like, did you have a grasp of that, or explain that?
I wish it came easy. It came very, very hard for me. I found it all very, very hard. I was, as you know, a plumbing heating engineer, never had to use a laptop.
Same,
I worked with
same.
another guy, and the other guy did all the admin, basically. He was more
Yeah,
techie than me. He used to do all the admin. So I didn't do any of that. And I found it really, really hard to had to learn everything about making a website, using a laptop properly, filming a video, editing a video. It took me years. It took me years to be able to get to the
yeah,
point where I could comfortably do it. I tried on Instagram. That didn't really work. It wasn't really the right platform for what I was
same.
sharing. I
Yeah,
was struggling a lot, and I actually, again, spoke to my teacher, and he said YouTube's the way to go for you.
yeah.
And I went on YouTube, and immediately things started to work well. So
Yeah,
I'd
it's a
always take
completely
advice.
the platform. It's the same. Like I have an Instagram, but like nothing really comes from the Instagram. It seems to be the
Mm,
YouTube. I think it's more people actually go on there to learn, right?
I think so.
They yeah. Whereas Instagram is more entertainment, right? It's shorts, flicking, it's very short attention span.
Yeah,
Um, but very, very similar again to me. I couldn't even use a laptop.
that's
Um,
exactly the same.
yeah, yeah. And slowly over time built my own website. Actually, in saying that, right, when I finished, I was plumbing from a very young age. Like I think I was like 16 maybe when I started my apprenticeship,
Hmm.
and quit plumbing by the age of like 24, and then went into a business where I had to use computers. So when I started the work that I do now, it was very much I had to do it all myself. I had to build the website, had to do the YouTube, learn from the ground up, do videos, record them, do all my own editing. And I still do it all. Still do everything, even the podcast. I do all the editing on it.
You get there, don't you? Eventually, it just
You're doing a
takes
great
practice.
job. I was like, I mean, you've got a huge following.
It's building up bit by bit. Yeah, I'm really happy with how it's picking up.
So
Yeah.
talk to me about YouTube and your message and your teaching that you're putting out there, and why YouTube is working so well for you.
Yeah, I just like I said, I took my teacher's advice again with YouTube and went down that avenue. And I've always just, I suppose, tried to just talk as if I was talking to a friend and tried to keep it as authentic as possible. I have had videos edited. Some of the videos are more edited than others, just when I've been trying it really and seeing if it
Mhm.
helps or not. But 99% of my videos are edited by me, but very basic and very conversational. So I just started putting a video or two out a week. I've just been very consistent. I don't think I've ever missed a week in 2 years or something. And just slowly but surely, it's just picked up a little bit. And I just talk to people how they would want a teacher to talk to them, I suppose, just in a conversational way. So oftentimes people, well, they've commented and said, I feel like I'm in the room with you, listening to you and just talking to you. And I suppose that helps. And then many people I think like the fact that I don't appear like a typical guru. I just look like I'm not a guru. I'm just a person who's practiced this stuff for a little while and hopefully has something useful to share. I think people like that. They like that.
You're
Okay,
relatable. Yeah,
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 yeah.
just what many would consider just normal and relatable, and I think that helps. But yeah, with YouTube, it's just been the consistency has been the thing. I think just being really consistent, authentic. I'll sit down before and I'll normally pray and I'll ask the divine to use me however it wants to use me. And when I tend to do that from a pure place, I tend to get guidance quite well. And I don't normally script anything. I normally just turn the camera on and just talk whatever comes.
Yeah.
And if I do it from the right place, it's amazing what I start teaching that I didn't know before. I start talking all sorts of things that perhaps have been in my mind, but the way I'm putting it together is not me because I couldn't put it together that well. Sometimes, I don't take some of the ones that people say are really connected with that. I think, well, me too, but it was the first time that I've really watched it because it didn't feel like me putting it out there.
Mm.
That's really strange.
Do you
Yeah,
still run, Ben?
I still keep fit. I've had issues with running through injuries and things, so I can't run at the moment, but I still keep active and go to the gym.
Why I'm saying that is because for me, a lot of the times, if I go for a run, I find that stuff starts like processing through me and ideas for videos start coming in and, oh, wouldn't that be a great topic? And blah, 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 blah. It just seems to happen. It doesn't happen at any other stage, only if I'm out either doing a walk or a run.
I think a walk's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. When you're out and about, it's just it comes through.
It comes true. Yeah. Yeah. So that's amazing. And congratulations with the success of your YouTube. I was on looking, you're doing an amazing job. So I guess you take people from the YouTube then onto your website and then you start mentoring them, right?
Yeah, yeah, I suppose so. I like to think that I teach on YouTube, and there'll always be a certain portion of those people that I teach on YouTube that want closer guidance, or they want to feel more part of a community. They want to connect with other people who are in a similar place to them. So I created basically an online school, which is essentially just a big community, and there's like 500 people now part of
So
this school.
like a platform, like can people interact or explain to me how it works?
The platform is called School, SKOOL, but I've named my school Inner Journey School, and it's a combination of there's like a forum, bit like a Facebook page, where people can comment, post, comment, like all of that type of thing, and engage with one another. There's a messenger so people can directly message me and ask me questions. I've also got like a form that people can fill out as many times as they want and ask questions. And then each week I will film a Q&A video. There's a calendar. So I've got different calls throughout the week. There's about 6 different group meditations and all sorts of different things going on through the week. And then there's like a course area where I've got pre-recorded like different meditation courses and just deeper learnings, I suppose, deeper teachings for people to take things a bit further. So it's just a platform to help people who want that closer support and want to just learn a bit more. I don't tend to teach meditation methods on YouTube. I keep that closer to home, and people can then directly communicate with me about how the process is going and get that guidance as they're going through it. So that's
And you
the
meet with them
school.
in a group setting
Yeah,
or one on one? Is it too, it's not feasible.
it's not feasible on a one-to-one at the minute because there's too many people to see. There's like 500 and something in there. So it's all group classes at the moment. Just group meditations, or sometimes we do group Q&As on Zoom, other lessons. There's loads going on throughout the week at all different time zones as well to suit people, because there's quite literally people from every corner of the world. It's quite amazing how many people are in there.
And in terms of energy and transmission, do you feel that's part of what's going on in the meditations?
Big part, yeah, definitely. A lot of people actually will message after and say they just felt a difference. They feel a
Mm,
difference as being part of the group. And it's not me, it's just I think the group effect has a big
yeah.
impact. That group effect is massive. People feel that. for sure.
Yeah, I would say a part of you as well, Ben. The energy that comes through. I mean, you may not realize it, but it's like there's a yeah, there has to be a focal point, right? Where
Mm.
I think the focal point is you.
I like to say I'm like a postman, and I was taught, and I just sort of pass the teachings on.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes I think information might flow through that I then put on a YouTube video, or perhaps something flows through when I'm teaching meditation. Yeah, I guess from that point of view, perhaps.
Yeah, and so like it's not like you actually know what's happening for that person, or you even feel like you've done anything, but just something happens in that space, right? It's just
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have that similar with
Yeah, so I
your
tend to like
teaching?
never really get involved in anybody's process, right? It's more like they come. Some people will come with a sometimes they'll ask a question at the beginning and it's almost like they offer it up, right? And then the divine is able to deal with whatever they have, or even just, if somebody comes with it, at the forefront of their mind, a
Hmm.
lot of the time it gets worked out for people.
Yeah.
Never anything to do with me, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Similar sort of experience there.
Yeah.
You and I have.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Do you feel there's anything that I've left out maybe that you'd like to speak about, Ben?
I think that's covered it. I think that's covered it pretty well. I just hope really that our conversation helps whoever's listening to begin either taking further steps if they're already on the path, or just begin that process of exploration. If anyone's interested in a book that might help them, to a kind of book that consolidates a lot of what I teach. A friend of mine, as I mentioned at the start, wrote a book called, I didn't mention the book, but it's called The Final Great Path East. It's on Amazon, and I've not got anything involved in it. It's just his thing. But a lot of the teachings that I share are outlined in the book. A lot of the conversations he's had between our teacher and himself are in there. It's a great resource for anyone that's looking for a resource. But yeah, other than that, I think we've covered a good amount.
And in terms of if people want to find you, right? You have a website, you have a YouTube. I'm going to put links down below to them. Do you want to just call them? Yeah,
Yeah, the main resource would be the YouTube channel, I think, at Ben Smith Real, Real. That's the best thing. You can just watch as many videos. I've got 200 odd videos, so loads of resources there. You can hopefully learn a good amount there. And for anyone that wanted to take it a step further and have closer help, then the school, Inner Journey School, there's a link below most of my videos. So if anyone was looking down that route, it's easy to find.
yeah. And we'll link in the YouTube video, and if they're listening on the podcast platforms, it'll be in the description as well.
Great.
Yeah, Ben, it's been really, really enjoyable chatting to you today. Yeah, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's been a pleasure. It's like a not a carbon copy, but it feels like we're on a very, been on very similar
Yeah.
paths in many ways. So it's great chatting with you as well.
It really is great, and I keep saying this. I'm so lucky to be in this position where I get to have such great conversations with people and
Mm.
hear about their unfoldment. And I mean, like everybody's is unique, but there are like certain signposts that we can all sort of go, okay, yeah, I went through that. That's something
Mhm.
similar, and it's nice for people to be able to hear, yeah, the way it
Have some
unfolds.
reference points. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, Ben, I wish you all the best with your YouTube channel and your teaching and your platform.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah, I
you so
appreciate
much.
it. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks to all the viewers and listeners. Take care. Bye bye.
This has been the Endless Possibilities Podcast, where the journey of spiritual awakening and energy healing unfolds. Gareth is a lifelong seeker of truth, a spiritual teacher, and author, and it's his passion to delve into the profound world of consciousness. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope you've gotten something from it. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, the podcast is available on YouTube and all the major podcasting platforms. Find us on Instagram at _Mother_Force. Take care, and we'll see you soon on the Endless Possibilities Podcast.